Hello, welcome to Cable's Conquests. I'm your host, Archie Cable, and we're here to talk about Marvel Crisis Protocol.
The name's Cable. Remember it.
Hello, welcome back to episode 4 of Cable's Conquests. Today, it's my turn to be going to an event. You've heard the dulcet tones of Curtis Hodgson for far too long, and my turn to be in spotlight. However, Curtis Hodgson is here to interview me. So welcome, Curtis. How you doing?
Hi, Archie. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Looking forward to this one. So this is kind of the start of a series of episodes that we're doing. So you are running an event, well, next weekend. Today's the 30th of January. So next weekend, you're running the first 2-day event in London called the Mutant Weekender. Excited about that?
Absolutely buzzing. Yeah, running it's a 48-player 2-day event that we're doing in Elephant and Castle. Really, really excited to do it. It's at the Mutant Freaks venue, which is run by someone who plays in our meta, Jamie Finch. So really, really cool to be able to use his space. I think it's normally a D&D space. 48 players. Last night we had a live group stage draw. So Archie, you've seen who you'll be facing on day one, and who you need to take out for you to get into that final pool of the Mutant Weekender Cup on day 2.
Yeah, but we're not talking about that today.
No.
We're talking about a tournament that has happened. Crisis at the Cafe, number 26. So this is one of Dr. Norbert's monthly events that are run at Bad Moon Cafe in London. And the reason I say this is a series of episodes is because I kind of am using this event to try out my list for the Weekenders. So we'll use this episode to talk you through the list. We'll see how it went at Crisis at the Cafe and what, if any, changes I'm going to make. So this event, this Crisis at the Cafe, is 19 players. So unfortunately, someone had to have a bye each round. Curtis was one of those unfortunate people.
After I got absolutely destroyed in round 1, I had to take the bye in round 2. But it was nice. I got an early lunch.
Yeah. So it's 4 rounds, Swift's format, challenger event. But the twist is it's with chess clocks, which I am hopeless at remembering.
I watched a couple of your games. You are hopeless. This is not just a bit. So often I saw yours ticking down as your opponent was going, and it would continue ticking down as you were going, and then occasionally you might swap. But yeah, no, that clock was not reliable.
Yeah, I think you remember to flip my clock about as many times as I remember to flip my own clock. So that's the tournament we'll be talking about. So I guess without further ado, let's go and talk about the roster.
You're boring me. If you want to help me nail him, get your team together and let's get started.
So, Archie, I can only assume that for the big Mutant Weekender, you are shooting for the win. So using one of these monthly events in London as the practice, go on, talk us through what you'll be taking.
So I've been very excited about this roster for a while. Let me run you through it. I'll go in threat value order. So we're going to start off big with the Immortal Hulk.
Ooh, he's not a leader.
He's not a leader, but he's 7 threat. Then we have Amazing Spider-Man, Daredevil, Wolverine, Ancient One, Elektra, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, everyone's favourite Wong, and Ghost Spider. My team tactics cards are Patch Up, Brace for Impact, Heroes for Hire, One Below All for Immortal Hulk, Smash, No Matter the Cost, Exceptional Healing, Mission Objective, and then All Webbed Up and Spider Tracker. Maybe there's a twist in there. Let me finish off by going through my crises. Gamma Wave, Mayor Fisk, and Riot Sparks. And then my extracts are Scrolls, Research Station, and Hammers. And that rounds out the roster.
Please put me out my misery. What is the game plan?
So, I love Daredevil. He is one of my favourite characters in Marvel, and when AMG decided to give him a glow up, I was like, I've got to get him on the table now.
It's well deserved, isn't it? Because he was a bit lackluster before, but he's such a cool guy.
Yeah, I kept trying him even when he was bad, and he kept letting me down, and then I'd put him away, and then I'd bring him back out again a few months later when I'd forgotten how bad he was. But now I think he's actually really good. So my my roster is focused around defenders. So I think you can see from my crises and my characters, I mean, I've got all defenders bar one.
Yep.
However, I do have the Web Warriors pivot. And I think this is a cool thing about defenders is actually it's such a large affiliated list with a lot of Web Warriors that it's quite easy to do a bit of both.
And I can't think of many characters who are defenders and not something else as well. It feels like, a secondary affiliation for most of these characters. I think maybe it's only Punisher, and that's only a recent change.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, the other thing about defenders is they don't have many team tactics cards. They've only got one team tactics card, and it's fine. I've never found a reason to use it.
Who does it require? Wong?
Requires Wong or Doctor Strange. And I have Wong in the list, but he's there for other reasons than just for a team tactics card.
Yeah, he's a battery / heal / yeah.
I was then able to bring in some Web Warriors cards, the kind of crucial pair of Web Warriors cards, All Webbed Up and Spider Tracker. However, the idea is not to go Web Warriors. The idea is to go Defenders. That's what I really want to be playing.
So even though you're planning to go Defenders, you've still taken up 2 of your cards, Team Tactics cards, with Web Warriors affiliated. So when do you bring Webs to the table?
So the game style for Defenders. So for those of you who don't know, Daredevil got his new leadership, which is called Marvel Knights. It's a Defender's leadership. And basically, once per turn, when you are making attacks, you can re-roll a number of your attack dice equal to the number of enemy characters within range 2 of you. So from that, you can kind of see it's quite an attrition-y leadership. And so this is reflected by the fact that I've taken kind of up the middle, Gamma Wave and Mayor Fisk. So that's the game style I want to go for. However, as you can also imagine, when you go wider, you've got those B maps and D maps. That leadership is not nearly as effective because more characters are spread out. So the reason I've brought in my Web Warriors, specifically ASM-led Web Warriors in this case, is so that I can be more competitive on those wide maps when they come up.
Sure. But so that's not just when your opponent might bring a wide map to the table. You're bringing a couple of wide maps as well. You've got Skrulls, which is, quite wide, 4 points on the table. Hammers, again, really wide, 4 points on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And in your secures, Riot Sparks. What's the thinking there?
So Gamma Wave and Mayor Fisk are auto takes for me in this list. Essentially, my core when I do attrition is Daredevil, Immortal Hulk, and Wolverine. I think that's just a really good core. Maybe you could argue that Original Hulk is better than Immortal Hulk, but I love the sculpt. I really please my paint job, and I just enjoy throwing stuff, so that's a good time with him. But then I got to my final secure, and I thought, I don't particularly like demons. I don't like being incinerated.
No.
19 threat is fine, but it's not as good.
And on the top tables, it's, that crisis is so dominated by those characters that we see all the time. For instance, Guardians with Cosmic Ghost Rider, Bill, all these Incinerate Immune is completely dominated by those, which actually I imagine you're quite weak against, are you?
Yeah, I have no Incinerate immunity. I have decent defenses, and actually a part of the idea behind a lot of the characters is that my defenses are surprisingly good for a low threat model. I've got Daredevil in there who counts blanks, Amazing Spider-Man who rerolls everything, Iron Fist who counts blanks.
Yeah.
But when you're getting incinerated, that just is so much less effective, and there's too much immunity to incinerate in the game for me to really be competitive at the highest level on Demons Downtown. So what I actually decided to do was put in Riot Sparks, and part of this was to use this weekend as a trial for something like this. Put in Riot Sparks and say to my opponent, okay, you like Riot Sparks, but you don't like Gamma and Mayor Fisk, so are you going to go for my secures where you could get a favorable secure, or are you going to go for my extracts where maybe you're not so happy? And I'm happy to go Riot Sparks. I think ASM-led webs is great for Riot Sparks. So I'm happy to have that pivot at my fingertips.
Nice. Well, sounds like you've got a game plan. Let's turn to the characters now. So pretty much most of these are Defenders affiliated, but you've got some interesting characters there that I don't see a ton at the tabletop. Do you want to talk me through your thinking behind, firstly, Ancient One?
Yeah, so Ancient One I've had for quite a while, and I've really enjoyed playing them when when they've hit the table, but I've rarely used them. And I think what's cool about Ancient One is it brings a mystic attack, which defenders is sorely lacking, or my defenders is sorely lacking. And it's a good mystic attack, especially with the leadership. But also you've got some surprise control where basically she can, if you target her with an attack, she can pull you towards her. So you can reposition your opponents when they attack you, which can catch people off guard. And also you can pull into martial artist range. So she's got martial artist within range 2. Her physical defense is quite weak. It's only 2. She's a 2/3/5 character. But when she's counting blanks, she gets up to 2 rerolls in her defense. Often 2 dice equals 2 successes with Ancient One. And actually, in that sense, she can become quite tanky with that pull. And so I quite like her for that unusually brawly character with a bit of control.
Okay, so, and like you say, she actually can put out a serious bit of hurt when she's up close, which is great for your affiliation.
Yeah.
The other one I want to touch on before we get stuck into game one is Electra.
Yeah, so Electra I love as a character in kind of comics and in the Daredevil Netflix series. And actually since she got that little tweak where her main attack became a gainer, I actually think she's pretty good on the table. She brings something unique to the roster in the ninjas where they can pick up extracts. And one of the things I was thinking with something like scrolls is they can move to your home scroll, pick it up. If they get pushed, they then get another move because they can get there because they're a medium base, medium mover.
Of course, yeah.
And so I quite like that element. And then she also brings the mystic attack, and she similarly can be quite tanky. So given that this is a trial, like I say, it's a trial for the Mutant Weekender, it's really a kind of competition between Ancient One and Electra as to who makes the final list. Because at the moment I've got 4 4s, a 5 and a 7. And I think that's too many high threat models. I need to get rid of one of those 4s and bring in probably another 3.
Right.
But I wanted to use this as like a direct comparison between the two. And I wasn't really sure going into it.
So you're going to look, get them on the table when you can, when the opportunity arises. Or I suppose if you don't feel like there's an opportunity, that's them failing the audition in itself, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Wolverine will come in most of the time because I just think he's really good now. And he's really good with the leadership in particular. And so it's likely that one of these other 4s will then ally with Wolverine, and it's who works best with him. And maybe I'll build my lists for some of my games. If there's an opportunity to play one of them, then I can kind of decide with that in the back of my mind that I want to see how they go.
Excellent. Right, well, I think we've heard enough here. Let's get stuck into game one.
We're not retreating. It's victory or death.
So, Archie, you've turned up at Bad Moon. You've been given your opponent. Who is it, and what's the game? What are you playing?
So I look across the table, round 1, and I see a very good friend of mine, Zahir Karez.
One of our team members for future team events.
Yep. So it's his first Crisis at the Cafe. We've played with him. Curtis and I have played with him quite a lot, but he's still fairly new to the game. And so classic, he rocks up wanting to play some new players, and he sees my mug across the table.
Yeah, he's devastated, isn't he?
Yeah. So obviously I'm bringing this Defenders Web Warriors list, and he's bringing Midnight Suns.
Oh, so is there some character crossover there?
There's a lot of character crossover, yeah. Within the roster and also within the game. So we roll priority, and Zahir wins priority. And you'll see that this is a theme of the weekend. So Zahir wins priority, and he goes for his secures. And we pull Demons Downtown and Skrulls.
Oh no, we just spent 5 minutes talking about how Demons Downtown is not for you.
Yep. And and Skrulls, okay, that's my extract, but it's one that's maybe not my strongest. Of course, Researcher would have been the best, but we're both quite brawly teams. I get to choose the threat value, and it's 19 or 20, so I go for 20. I want a big game to start us off. So my 5 is Daredevil, Elektra, Luke Cage, Immortal Hulk, and Wong.
Nice. Okay. So obviously Defenders, as you want to do, a nice fighty scenario. And Elektra has already got her chance to shine. Her audition starts now.
Yeah, so Electra over Wolverine, despite my core being Wolverine, Hulk,
Yeah. So
and
talk me through what Zahir's brought
yeah.
and why. I mean, obviously you wouldn't have known what he's brought, but it'd be good to know what he's brought and what your thinking was behind Electra over Wolverine.
Mhm. So he has brought Blade, of course, leader of Midnight Suns, Black Cat, Moon Knight, Iron Fist, Wong, and Ghost Rider. Not Cosmic, normal Ghost Rider. OG
Nice,
Ghost
nice.
Rider,
Of course, of course.
Midnight Sun.
So he's 5, 6 wide.
6 wide, so he's on
6
6 wide.
wide.
So actually, the only crossover we have, despite having a lot of crossovers in our roster, is Wong, which is quite amusing. Nothing wrong with that. So I'll get into why I chose Electra in round one, because round one is actually quite interesting. So there's not much to say about the setup, and Zahir goes first with Black Cat. Black Cat takes one of the left scroll. Daredevil then goes and takes the right scroll. All pretty standard to start.
Cool. Sounds like pushes weren't of consequence or anything.
So Black Cat passed. I think Daredevil did get pushed, but I don't mind Daredevil getting pushed too much. He's quite tanky, which is why he went for it. Then Zahir goes with Wong and walks to his scroll, his home scroll, which is not that home, and picks it up with Wong.
So that's 2 moves with Wong. So there's no.
Yeah, Wong then gets pushed, which I think then gives me a good go at him. And so I go with Electra. And part of the reason I brought Electra was because my home scroll was on a size 3 piece of terrain, but with enough of an overlap that I could come behind the size 3 terrain with the ninjas, grab it, get pushed. I'd only get pushed sideways across the board, and then run away back towards my back demon. So I do that with the ninjas. They get pushed. Electra, she's auditioning, steps up, 4 damage into Wong, dazed off the bat.
Super. So does she? Is she able to then pick up his scroll?
She then picks up the scroll and gets pushed. There's a lot of pushing going on, but that's quite a big start to the turn. But then his Iron Fist walks up and does like 4 damage to Electra. So it's a pretty brutal turn one.
And you're just trading blows. Someone walks up to the midline, then get attacked, dazes, and then whoever did that is on the midline, and then they get dummied.
Dazed. So those were the points of interest early in the round. I think I then walk up to the middle with Luke. He kind of follows with Ghost Rider because he's immune to Incinerate. Blade somewhere sat at the back. In my Immortal Hulk hops up onto the front. Can't really do a huge amount. Just the way the terrain is, the way that Zahir's characters are. He might have thrown Cosmic Ghost Rider off the point.
Regular Ghost Rider.
Regular Ghost Rider. I'm going to do that all game. Yeah. So then Moon Knight walks up. He's got this range 4 rapid fire and throws his throwing crescents into Daredevil. And I think he does 2 damage off the two attacks.
Okay, fairly standard.
Actually perfect for Daredevil. Daredevil can then spend 2 power, advance short towards Moon Knight, and 5 damage. Bang! Moon Knight is dazed.
Oh, this all turn 1 still?
All turn 1. All turn 1.
Oh my, this is bloody.
It was a brutal turn 1. The scrolls just made it so brutal because you weren't able to just sit back like you normally would. Yeah. You were getting pushed and pulled around. But look, Zahir was pretty unlucky, and conversely, I was very lucky because I basically one shot with a 5 dice into Wong, and then one shot with a 5 dice into Moon Knight. Granted, I have the rerolls with Daredevil. I think I had 2 rerolls, but still, it was pretty lucky.
It sounds like the typical game of Scrolls when neither person has brought a ton of tech to deal with Scrolls. There's no like push or replacement they can do once they've picked it up. Yeah. It doesn't sound like either of you have gone with your long movers to pick up that closer one. So if you get pushed, you can run back. Obviously, you didn't need to.
No, so I think I was able to get mine with the ninjas, and they were pretty safe. Daredevil, of course, has to go. He has to double move, but yeah. I think the fact that neither of us had any kind of midline grabs meant that it was a bit of a crazy turn. So turn 1 finishes 5-2 to me. So I have the middle demon, my home demon, and then 3 of the 4 scrolls, thanks to Electra. So it's quite a big turn 1 for me.
Yeah, and I assume because it's turn 1 and he's probably had all 6 characters go. Mm-hmm. Priority's been handed to you?
Yep, so I have priority. I dazed Moon Knight during his activation, so I kept priority. And Daredevil does the business on Moon Knight. KOs
Finishes him off.
top of round 2. I think because I've gained so much power, I'm able to do my spender, which hits Ghost Rider as well. I think I couldn't quite get onto Blade on the back point, and I really wanted to finish off Moon Knight, just get him off the table.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I get my spender off round 2, which is just unheard of. I think it's an 8 dicer. I push Ghost Rider away. Moon Knight's off the table. So that's a great start.
I feel bad for Zahir because I imagine he's brought that team for. He's probably thinking about his siege turn. You know, you're all incinerated up. He's got a ton of characters to hit you hard in that siege, and Moon Knight's just not had a chance to do it.
Yeah, Moon Knight's not had a chance. However, he then does siege. And actually, interesting rules point for the rules lawyers out there is you can siege before you choose a character to activate.
Oh, interesting.
So because it's an active team tactics card, you don't have to choose. You can activate, you could siege, and then you could pass if you wanted, for example, which is quite a nice thing.
Interesting.
And his siege is a bit crazy because Blade attacks Daredevil, and then Daredevil attacks Blade back. Ghost Rider goes for Elektra, and Luke Cage heroes for hire. Takes something like 4 damage, so he's 4 out of 6 damage, so he's quite close to death. But then he gets to throw Ghost Rider.
He gets the throw off, then, doesn't he?
Throws Ghost Rider into Blade, dazes Blade.
Oh no, Blade's not even gone.
No, in the siege turn, Blade has been dazed, and then Iron Fist finishes off Elektra. So the siege turn is quite a bloody turn because
for both sides.
For both sides, just I think it's one of those where actually the Defenders roster is quite well built for something like siege or just for clapbacks.
I imagine as well, with you getting your rerolls off in those clapbacks, like you must have a number of characters who are so unappealing to attack. I mean, that must be I mean, we can talk about it later, but that must be quite an appealing way to build your roster with Defenders.
Yeah. One thing actually that Zahir did, which was really nice, is Daredevil clapped back, rolled a bunch of crits. I think he rolled 2 crits, and Ghost Rider damaged him.
Oh, of course.
So Daredevil does clap back, I think he doesn't take any damage from Blade, but then he's only 1 health off because he's rolled so many crits.
Oh no. So which is great for him, right? If he can sort of play into your clap back to get you rolling dice, get you rolling crits, and hopefully kill yourself. Yeah.
That was the big play of round 2. Round 2 opens up with an absolute bang and then kind of goes a bit more steady. So Ghost Rider goes after the siege, but actually is not that effective. I think he just goes into Eye-Hulk,
right?
And Eye-Hulk just tanks a few of his attacks. So I think he was looking to hex Eye-Hulk. Retrospectively, he told me he was looking to hex Eye-Hulk, and actually he can't be hexed, which
that's a shame.
Is quite a big deal.
And as a result, I imagine he's just powered Hulk up.
Yeah. And I think Luke survives thanks to Wong healing him up. So actually Luke goes back down to like 2 health, so he's okay. And I think, the other thing I did was that Immortal Hulk, I used Smash. So I brought Smash along as one of my trial tactics cards, and I used Smash, not realizing that because of all the hurt that I'd done to Ghost Rider before, he only had 2 health left. So I lined up my 10 dice attack, ready to throw him into Wong, who was stood behind him, trying to KO Wong, and he just died.
It's just a lesson in overkill, that, isn't it?
Yeah, so it was such a waste of a card. I think I only made 1 attack with Immortal Hulk when I used Smash, so that was a bit rookie. Because Zahir had done a nice play where basically he'd managed to pick up the scroll again with Wong, but then went with him and ran away. And so Wong was on the back demons where he was harder to get to. So the way I was going to get to him, because of terrain, was to throw Ghost Rider into him. But that didn't happen.
And Ghost Rider will fly because is it a medium throw? But of course he's got such a massive base.
Yeah. So slight mess up there. But at the end of that round, after that bloody round 2, it's 8-5 to me. So the scores have remained kind of the same gap because Wong has picked up my scroll from Elektra. And I think actually Daredevil might have ended up dazing because he was only 1 health off. So I think one of the scrolls might have been on the ground, which is why it was even.
So the gap's still there, but the cost of all the fighting, essentially, the number of scores has slowed down considerably.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. There's definitely one scroll at least. It must be one scroll on the floor, and I'm still holding the middle.
Right. Okay. So what happens in round 3 then? That in the aftermath of this savage siege turn.
I think round 3, I have given up priority because I dazed so many characters, and Zahir goes with Wong first, and actually just runs Wong away. And I think I'm thinking, oh, I can try and KO Ghost Rider. He can then come back with his tactics card and take out Wong, who's holding a scroll. So Zahir just like runs Wong off to the side of the board where he's safely holding the scroll, which is probably quite a good move because Wong is very vulnerable.
Absolutely. And if you can trade Wong, who's scoring you a point, for a fully healthy Ghost Rider who can score you that point after he goes down, I don't blame him. Sounds like a
Yeah,
good plan.
yeah. Daredevil does another area attack because he's been powered up. I think he has flipped.
So powered up.
He whiffs on Ghost Rider, but importantly KO's Blade.
Oh.
So Blade's off the table round 3.
Bump is now off the table as well. So I imagine Zahir's ability suddenly is significantly reduced.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's nice. It's another character off the board. And then on my home demon, so this is all happening on his home demon where I'm trying to push for that point. My Wong is sat back, happy as anything, and his Black Cat and Iron Fist converge. And they really go after Wong. Wong, absolute champ. Tanks it.
No.
The buffed Wong with the 3 physical defense. I mean, Black Cat and Iron Fist aren't the most aggro characters, but still.
No, but I mean, 2 characters with maybe attack each or 3 attacks out of that.
Yeah. I think Zahir was pretty unlucky there because Wong was holding that back point. And actually, while he is stealing that back point from me because he's got 2 healthy characters as opposed to my 1, it still means that it's easier for me to get it back. So then there's a few of my characters that are a bit in no man's land. So then the end of round 3 is the calm after the storm of round 2, right. And it's a bit more just kind of moving around. So I think that happens. The only big thing of note is that I-Hulk KO's Ghost Rider. So I do get Ghost Rider. However,
right.
Zahir very smart. Rather than going for Wong, who is injured and way out of the game, holding an objective that I'm never getting, he KO's his Black Cat.
Oh, I didn't see that coming, but it's quite smart.
It's a ballsy play because Black Cat then drops her scroll, but it means that Ghost Rider comes back healthy and is able to pick up the scroll and be an influence.
Yes, and he comes back. Does he come back unactivated or
unactivated? And actually, this is probably to Zahir's detriment because he comes back unactivated, but then doesn't have an impactful turn because I've been able to throw him away. And then he gives me back priority.
Ah, yes.
So at the end of round 3, the gap is still the same. It's 12-9. So I think we've both scored 4 BPs this turn. The scrolls are back in our possession. And
Sure. And yeah, like you say, everyone's repositioned. It's almost on evens again.
Yeah. For him, Iron Fist and Ghost Rider are both healthy. So they're the 2 healthy characters.
Right, okay. And for you, obviously, I-Hulk seems to be still
I-Hulk's fine.
Pretty happy.
Wong, I think, has been dazed at this point. Daredevil and Elektra have both been dazed. So it's been pretty bloody.
Yeah.
But I've still got all my characters on the table, which is quite important.
Yeah, and I imagine going into turn 4, the one who's probably going to make the biggest difference is Hulk, right?
Yeah, so you say that. He steps up. He's got enough power to do all his stuff. Can't take out Iron Fist.
What?
Yeah. It was crazy. I didn't get my wilds on to get my throws off. I think I only got 1 throw off, which was my superpower. And Iron Fist was just tanking it because he was getting his blank.
He's getting his blank.
Even though he only had 2 defense because he was incinerated. Iron Fist then goes and activates Luke.
Right.
And I get very lucky here. I think Luke survives on 1, which means although he's activated, he's a healthy character that can still bodyguard.
Sure, because even though he'd taken that 4 points earlier on in the game, Wong has been, chipping away at his health and healing him up?
And I actually think I patch up Luke at some point as well during the game.
Right, okay. Oh, he's such a good patch up with that damage reduction, bodyguard. So good.
And then Wong does what Immortal Hulk couldn't and dazes Iron Fist.
It's always the case.
So I think Iron Fist only had like 2 health left after Hulk had gone at him. But Wong steps up. Wong is a bit of a champ in this game. And essentially I think that ends the game because his Wong is miles away. I have Daredevil and Elektra being a nuisance, just like grabbing me points. And because he now doesn't have enough healthy characters, it means he can't score. So in the end, I finish 16-12, so I get to 16 just. I open up another point in the difference. But actually, it was a really close game. And I think had things gone slightly differently round one, I think basically round one set me up because I got that VP difference. And then as the game kind of progressed, I managed to maintain that difference.
Definitely. I think you've done really, really well to sort of ride the storm of the siege turn after you've had a really good first turn, because that might have just switched the points back to evens.
Yeah.
And then you've got a really nail-biting finish. But actually, I think your team was well set up to not only survive that, but hit back. And you've just been able to keep that difference up. So
Yeah.
Well done. Right. Well, should we take this W and then head on and see what happened in round two? So, first win under your belt. Round two, who are you facing and what are you up against?
So across the table from me is Hellfire Club, and it's being run by Will Benson, who is currently a bit of a menace in in the scene. He's a very, very nice guy. But yeah, he's a really top player at the moment. And he's playing Hellfire Club, which is a great roster.
Offside, being piloted by a top player. Yeah, I've not seen him lose yet, so I hope that's not a spoiler for this. But yeah, he's on a bit of a hot streak at the minute.
Yeah, and Hellfire Club are a pretty powerful list. So we roll priority, and as I alluded to, I lose priority.
Of course.
Which against Hellfire Club is a bit of a shame.
Yeah.
Because we've got completely different secures.
Definitely. They've got the secures. But also, I think even in the game, they love getting that first extract as well.
Yeah.
So they can quickly get on the scoreboard.
Yeah. And so we draw superpowered scoundrels and scrolls again. So it's a big choice I've got to make now. It's 20 threat or 20 threat. And so I go with, you'll be surprised to hear, 20 threat.
Good. Okay. Go talk me through your thought process. Why 20?
You know, I just looked at my roster, you know, I analyzed it carefully and just thought that 20 threat felt like the right thing to do.
Nice. Great. Sounds like you've really made a good decision there.
So as I'm building my squad, I can see Will across the table being like, "Oh, defenders, how am I gonna deal with this?" And I had no intention of going with defenders on superpowered scoundrels.
Of course.
So my list is Amazing Spider-Man, Daredevil, Ghost Spider, Elektra, and Ancient One.
So it's still not obvious who you're playing, right? But you could still play either one?
I could still play either one. However, I then took All Webbed Up and Spider Tracker and gave the game away.
Yeah, that really does give the game away. But I this is exactly why you've got that webs pivot. You don't want to play it, but if you're on the crises that forces you, then excellent. And also ASM's handing out slows. Some of these characters are gonna want to be sitting on those points. If you can displace them and slow them, you know that's only going to go in your favor.
Exactly. And so Will chooses for his Hellfire Club at 20. He goes 5 wide, interestingly. Normally I'd expect 6 wide from Hellfire Club, but he goes with Emma, of course. Bill, Rhino, Miles, and Ultron. New Ultron.
Right.
Metal Tyrant.
If you ignore Emma and we had a podcast about who are the top 4 or 5 best characters in the game right now, I think the list wouldn't look too dissimilar, would it? And
yeah,
sounds like they're just they've all joined Emma's club.
Yeah, exactly. However, I actually thought ASM leadership's quite good at countering some of these characters, especially the likes of Bill and Ultron, who move medium base. And so actually I saw this and was like, okay, I think my gamble of going, or not my gamble, my plan of going ASM is the right one.
Excellent. Okay, cool. So how does it set up and what does turn 1 look like? Is it going as you imagined?
Yeah, so I'm obviously aware he's got quite a lot of steals. He's got robbery in particular. That's what I'm worried about. So I deploy my ASM on the left opposite his Rhino. And so ASM turn 1 is then able to go and grab that central extract, the scroll. He doesn't get pushed, though it wouldn't matter if he did. And then he walks back onto the scoundrel. So, and he's also sat behind some terrain. So he's nice and safe from a turn 1 robbery, which is what we want.
Brilliant.
On the right-hand side, Will had priority. So his Miles walks up and picks up the kind of right-hand side midline scroll, and he does get pushed, which I'm very pleased about, because Miles, I've set up my Electra and Ancient One so that they can target Miles, and Miles hates Mystic. So this is part of the reason why Electra and Ancient One come in.
And he hates Mystic because he can't reroll.
He can't reroll, so he's just a 5 health 3/3/3.
Oh, yeah.
With nothing special.
Great. Yeah, if you can put a couple of 5-6 dice attacks, excellent.
Yeah, so Daredevil pulls him in with his range 4 ignoring stealth hit trigger on his attack. And then he walks up onto my home scroll. So this was a slight mistake with Electra and specifically the ninjas. I wanted to do what I did in game 1 and go up and pick up that central scroll, my home scroll, with the ninjas, and then run away. I hadn't accounted for the way the terrain was, and so the terrain prevented me from doing that. So I would have had to double move with the ninjas.
So is that why Daredevil's gone as a wall crawler to get onto that terrain in one move?
Well, no, because he ended up pulling Miles in, but I was going to go with the ninjas first and pick that up,
Sure.
and just sacrifice Electra's go. But it meant that I didn't pick up that scroll, and actually that probably was a mistake. Maybe I should have gone with Daredevil and picked that up. But however, having said that, the pull from Daredevil meant that Electra could now double tap Miles.
Excellent.
And actually, because I'd done a little bit of damage with Daredevil, Electra does it again. Round 1, daze Miles.
Perfect. And he's holding a scroll, so
he's holding a scroll
now in your possession.
And then what I use Assassin's Step with Electra, which allows her, because she dealt damage, allows her to place within one of Miles, and then she can walk onto the middle. So she's now contesting the central scoundrel. And then Ancient One picks up the scroll on her turn, and then walks up and sits again on my home.
Okay, so it's not the end of the world. You've still got the scroll. Both of them are sat on that central scoundrel, gaining cover.
Yeah,
holding the point. Sounds like a good turn 1.
Yeah, so it is a good turn 1, and I end the round. I think Ultron steals my scroll because I couldn't get the ninjas on there, and so we end the round 5-4. So I'm up 5-4. So I'm quite happy with that. I'm up a VP. I've got an extra extract, and Miles has been dazed. However, Will knows what he's doing. Miles now has enough power to web swing, do his Venom Blast, which makes you drop objectives, pick up that objective, and move away, medium. So it's a really nice play that I had seen coming, and I thought I'd been able to set up for it because of Lifesaver with Gwen. So I had a sneaky anti-Mars plan, which Will effectively foiled, where Ancient One is the person holding the extract. Ancient One can pull a character towards her and can pull through, and then Gwen can Lifesaver. So if you've set it up right, you can, even if Miles is base to base with Ancient One, I can actually get out of dodge and avoid the Venom Blast.
Oh, brilliant.
However, the way I've positioned and the way Will manages to position Miles, I can't do that effectively, because essentially he sets it up so that Gwen is blocking Ancient One's pull, and vice versa, Miles is blocking Gwen's Lifesaver.
This is not his first rodeo.
No, he knows what he's doing. So Miles escapes. And this is problematic because he escapes to sit beside Emma. And now I have a lot of pulls with the likes of Gwen and Daredevil, but Emma doesn't care. Emma is perfectly happy,
of course,
with pulls because she can stop it. So Miles is quite safely on that superpowered scoundrel, getting cover, getting his not always getting his rerolls against my Mystic, but not being able to be pulled towards me. So that's a really nice play from Will. And on that flank, it ends up Daredevil, Ancient One, and Electra all try and fail to take out Miles. I think they all only get one attack, so it's kind of difficult.
Yep.
It's a real problem. And also Electra has hopped up onto to contest Will's back scoundrel, gets double tapped by Emma, and it's just her, 5 dice Mystic, hit wild, trigger both times.
Oh.
And so now Electra is pissed off into the back corner, miles away from anyone.
It's so frustrating. I can understand getting one off And Electra doesn't mind that, right? Because she can jump back in.
Yeah.
But to get both off is incredibly unlucky on your part.
Yeah, so that side's not going fantastically. When I've gone with Electra, I've moved the ninjas in to try and give ASM a mission objective target so that Rhino doesn't steal from him. Unfortunately, the way I positioned the ninjas, I thought I'd done it better, but he was then able to push with Rhino because he's getting so much power from the Emma Frost leadership. He's able to push with Rhino, hit my ninjas, and rob ASM.
So the ninjas are gone. They're dazed.
They've gone.
Yeah, poofed off.
And ASM loses his scroll, which is a shame because ASM is great with the scroll. However, ASM in the final act of the round, I think it must have been the final act of the round, or at least my final act of the round, finally swings across the board and finishes Miles off.
Oh, brilliant.
And picks up Miles's scroll.
Right, so that's taken up so much of your resource just to take Miles off the table?
Yeah, but Miles is now off the table and I am even on... Oh no, I'm still 1-2... Well, I'm 1-3 down on scrolls, but for a while it was looking like I was going to go 0-4 down on scrolls. So ASM salvages something. And during this activation as well, Ancient One has been dazed by someone. I can't remember exactly how it happened, but this is important for setting up round 3. At the end of round 2, it is 7-all. So I feel like I've done it quite well, despite Hellfire Club famously having a good round 2 to maintain parity on the scores.
Yeah, you're within touch and difference, but it's a shame you've lost that turn 1 momentum. It sounds like Hellfire have had a classic Hellfire turn 2 where they're all set up because they've all got 2, 3, sometimes 4 power if they've got their builders off and stuff, and they can just do everything they want to do. Yeah,
and I think I tried to mitigate it as best as possible, and Will, being a great player, managed to play around those mitigations and actually still get the effectiveness out of Hellfire Club.
Great. Okay, so you've lost that lead. You've been moved around the table, but now Miles is off. What does turn 3 look like?
So turn 3, I've remembered I don't have priority anymore. So ASM has gone last because I can't remember how exactly, but I don't have priority. In fact, I think it's because we're both 5-5. And Emma steps up. And this is a real problem. She has enough power to do 2 8-dice spenders.
Well, I bet if she's getting her crit wilds in her builders, she's going to be juiced up.
And she dazes a fully healthy ASM. And a fully healthy Ancient One.
It's such a powerful spender, that. Is it 8-dice Mystic for 3 power with a wild throw? It's so good.
Yeah.
Especially because most characters don't have decent Mystic defense.
Yeah. So I think in this, Will and I talked about it after the game, I was quite unlucky because I think his plan was to try and take out ASM. And I think that was a fair one because he's only 3 Mystic. Yes, he has all the rerolls and witty banter, but with an 8-dice Mystic with a potential throw, that's not the most unlikely. No. But he one-shots ASM, and then even more unlikely probably is he one-shots Ancient One, because Ancient One has 5 Mystic defense with 2 rerolls and 6 stamina.
Yeah. So she's gone. She's off the table.
Ancient One is off the table.
Ooh.
Yeah. And so in the audition, if we're keeping track, audition between Electra and Ancient One has not gone well so far. She's had one game and has done very little.
No. Whereas Electra, on the other hand, seems to be, apart from being thrown away by Emma's mind blasts, she's doing okay.
She's doing all right. So that's a really problematic thing for me because I've just lost 2 activations, including ASM, who I think is one of the better characters.
Definitely.
And it means that he can really do a lot of like Hellfire Club things. And so the rest of the round, nothing overly kind of crazy happens. I think Gwen might get dazed. In fact, I think a few of my characters get dazed, but it just really starts spiraling just because I don't have the characters in the positions that I needed them to be after that Emma go. And so I end this round 9-14 down.
Ooh. I mean, you've still scored points there, have you? Yeah?
Yeah.
Which is quite good.
Yeah, I scored 2 points. I can't remember who scored my points. I think it might have been Electra. Because I think she was the only one left alive.
Yeah, the point difference is always going to happen when you lose characters who need to be scoring for you. ASM needs to be someone who's scoring for you.
Yeah, and it's really tough because now Will is 2 points away from victory, and so it's quite hard to see a way back into it. However, I still have my trap card, and that is All Webbed Up.
Right.
And All Webbed Up is particularly potent with the ASM leadership.
Priorities come back to you as well.
Very firmly in my priority. So the first thing that happens is that Gwen all webs up, but ASM goes, and ASM does the business. He dazes Emma and Bill.
Wow.
It's a huge go from ASM.
Very, very impressive.
I think I get my momentum off, so I get to like swing into both of them. I think I've done some damage before onto both of them, so they're a bit kind of, they've been fattened up a little bit. But yeah, he has a huge turn. However, unfortunately, then Ultron KOs Gwen, which is not overly surprising, but it would have been nice if she'd managed to get an all webbed up go.
Yep.
But then Daredevil on the other side. So this is all happening as I'm facing the table on the far right, Scoundrel, and on the back left, Daredevil and Rhino are tangoing. So I think Rhino had just dazed Daredevil, and this time Daredevil gets his revenge. So now he's flipped. He has enough for an area attack, which is only onto Rhino, but it basically means he can put a slow condition on Rhino and get 7 dice attack, 9 dice attack.
Excellent. Because you're pushing him as well, right?
Yeah, I mean the push doesn't go off because I dazed him with the area attack. But yeah, and he grabs his scroll. Unfortunately, can't sit on the back left on my home's left Scoundrel, but it does mean that only Ultron is alive from him, and I managed to keep my fingernails in the game 12-15 at the end of round.
So he scored. So I assume Ultron's holding a scroll. That's the only point he's got on that turn.
Yeah,
very good. Oh, very impressive.
It's big. It's big, and ASM and Daredevil just leading the way there. However, I think, as you can probably guess, with Hellfire Club, it's tough to come back from that.
I can also tell from MCP, just in general, that these turns swing, and he's had a great turn, which has set you up to have a great turn. You've had all that power. You get to go first. He now gets to go first with a ton of power, right?
Yeah. So the big thing is that I only have 3 characters left at this stage. I have ASM, Daredevil, and Elektra.
Right.
And whereas he has 4. And Ultron dazes Elektra at the top of round 3. This makes it hard because it means that Ultron is now scoring him 2 VPs. And so then I'm really trying with ASM and Daredevil to do enough damage, but they just don't have the dice without all webbed up. And so Rhino runs away onto one of my points. Daredevil can't take out Emma, so we share points, and the game ends 14 points to 19.
Ooh, so it's a bigger gap, but essentially, it sounds like you've worked really, really hard to get it back. But you're right, he's got that character up on you. Essentially, if he dazes or KOs one of your characters, meaning maximum you could score is 4, well, the other 3 characters can go off and score 6, potentially.
Yeah, exactly. And I think actually it was a really close game, and I was really pleased that I was able to pull it back, and I'm really pleased I tried this ASM leadership out, and I think it did have some legs. And I think that one go from Emma was just so influential. When the game was on a knife edge at 7-all, taking 2 of my characters out was massive.
Do you think, so quick question before we end and go into the next round, you've gone into ASM webs. Do you think if you had Miles webs, but a very similar team, say brought him in as a 3 and changed the roster around slightly, but kept the core the same, do you think that would have been stronger with the rerolls?
I think so. I think ASM leadership was massive because Daredevil got to do his all webbed up turn properly. But I think actually we might have avoided that situation with Miles because ASM I think rolled a bunch of skulls when he got dazed. And I think Miles would have just been a good character to have for the steal back. And so I think I really like ASM's leadership, but maybe that F map where the distances aren't so far apart, the slow is not quite as effective.
Yeah.
I largely used it in this game to move people off points. Also, Emma's quite a good counter because she can prevent places.
Right, and that's what the ASM leadership is. If they're already slow, it places them. It's not a push. It's not an advance. It's a place, and she can still stop that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think actually Miles would have been better in this case.
Interesting. Okay, well, it's not the end of the world. You're halfway through the event. 1 win, 1 loss, and the loss is against, probably the best player on the London scene right now. So Still got a lot to be pleased with. Should we take it to round 3? So Archie, you're 1-1. So you're going into round 3. Who are you playing and what are you up against?
So I'm playing another local London lad that I've played a few times, and it's Darren.
Oh, excellent.
Darren Kelso. And he is playing his Web Warriors. So it's a newish thing for him that he's been trialing.
Okay, this is another potential wide map.
Mm-hmm.
Another potential opportunity for you to maybe sprinkle a bit of Web Warriors too.
Yeah. So as the theme is, I lose priority.
Of course.
And so Darren naturally picks his secures because he hates my secures. However, we actually draw right sparks, so the 17 wide D map and research station.
Oh, so 2 that are actually sat in your roster as well. So
yeah,
excellent. So you've got a game plan for this.
But it's interesting because I've not played researcher combined with something like a D map for a very long time.
Sure.
So it's because there's such very different styles of play. And so the choice I have to make is 15 or 17. And I decide to go 17. And my thinking is because Wong can come in as that extra character as well as my core. So I go with Daredevil, Immortal Hulk, Wolverine, and Wong.
Nice. Okay. This is your core team essentially, isn't it? This is the dream team for 17 threat.
Yeah. So I lean into defenders, I lean into researcher, but I have Wong there to just hold the back objective.
But that's okay because even on the D map, you've got that back point, haven't you?
Exactly. So that's my thinking.
There's still, 2 points from the researcher right in the middle, 1 at the back, 1 at their backs. There's only 2 out of the total 6 VPs that are wide. So actually, probably not a bad shout.
So I'm thinking if I can maintain parity for long enough to attrition my way to victory, that's the game plan. So Darren, in classic Web Warriors fashion, goes with 6 wide at 17. Miles, Spectacular Spider-Man, Gwen, Black Cat, Moon Knight, and Black Widow. So 2 threat Black Widow.
Oh, so a ton of 3s and then a 2 threat.
Yeah. So it's pretty websy. I was kind of hoping he'd only go 5 wide, but that's okay. I think I can still deal with all these characters.
It's just more characters for Hulk to smash.
Yeah, exactly. So the round one is kind of cagey-ish. So Wong sits on the back of the Riot Sparks, passes a power off to Wolverine to try and set him up for one of his big spenders, but Darren knows what he's doing and keeps his Web Warriors away from the researcher. So in the end, I'm forced to move Immortal Hulk and Wolverine onto the researcher. I know that Gwen's got to go at the end and she'll be able to pull someone off. So I want 2 characters on that researcher.
Brilliant.
And Daredevil also pulls Miles off the left Riot Sparks just to get him a bit more in the mix.
He loves pulling Miles off. It's the second time now.
Yeah. He loves pulling Miles off. And but because he's so much wider than me, he has Spectacular Spider-Man and Miles on the left, Moon Knight and Black Cat on the right, Black Widow on the back point. So he's got 2 to my kind of 1 on the wide. Then Gwen steps up. And Gwen, she's got 4 dice attacks, not the best attack in the world. Darren walks Gwen up. I think he did R&D power onto Gwen. So Gwen then pulls Immortal Hulk off the researcher. She's within range 2 of Wolverine, 4 damage into Wolverine off a 4 dice attack. It's brutal.
What are you on about? Gwen, this is natural Gwen turn, she's OP, clearly.
And so she then gets another move because she did that kind of an attack, pulls Wolverine off the researcher and pulls Wong off my back point. So she goes last and I am now down 5-0. At the end of round 1.
No.
It was absolutely savage, Gwen.
Wow. Well, it's not been a hot minute since we've seen 0 points scored in a round.
I know. And I did think this when I went 5-0 down. I was like, no, I can't. I just need 1. But actually, I was looking at this and I was like, okay, that's annoying. That's unlucky. But now Gwen is in a bad position where Wolverine can have his way with her, and Immortal Hulk's pretty mobile, can probably take out 2 characters in his activation.
And I'm sure you've still got One Below All online, his Gamma Leap online. So he can get around.
Exactly. So I then start with Wolverine at the top of round 2. I have priority, of course, and I daze Gwen. So I daze Gwen off the bat. And actually, I think I misplayed Wolverine here because he only needed 1 attack to daze Gwen. So then his second action was just to walk back onto the researcher. So it was it was a good turn. It was what I needed him to do, but he actually only needed 1 attack. Immortal Hulk, I think he then goes with Black Widow, and it's a 4 dice attack into Immortal Hulk, 4 damage.
4? What else could you expect from
4 dice attacks. 4 dice attacks are great, and it's his one where if she deals damage, she staggers. So Immortal Hulk gets staggered, and I have kind of forgotten this, and I'm like, oh, that's a bit rookie, but it's okay because I brought Wong. So Wong then goes. I think I might have passed. I think some things might have happened with like Daredevil versus Miles and Spectacular Spider-Man at this stage, but not a huge amount. I'm waiting for my big Immortal Hulk go to kind of finish off the round. So Wong goes and removes the stagger from Immortal Hulk. What does Darren do? Black Cat staggers Immortal Hulk.
Oh no!
So
you could have saved that action, right? You could have gone with someone else.
It was so stupid. I mean, I think probably I should have just been safe and gone with Immortal Hulk first and tried to daze Black Cat and Moon Knight because I think he probably would have been able to do that. Even so, I then shake my stagger. I go for Black Cat and Moon Knight, which are on the right sparks. You know, they're both 5 health, 3s across the board character. A couple of throws probably will do the job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Immortal Hulk does 0 damage with his attack into Moon Knight. Doesn't get his
No
wild off,
of course.
And then I think I throw Black Cat into Moon Knight just to get her off the point, and they block it all. So Immortal Hulk has done no damage.
Oh no!
Or maybe 1 damage, or something measly for a 7 threat character.
Maybe you should have brought Ghost Spider instead. You know, she was in your roster. Sounds like she does more.
And Immortal Hulk, I think if I'd gone with Immortal Hulk first and got 2 attacks off, that was a mistake. But I still think 7 dice doing no damage to Moon Knight feels bad.
Yeah, definitely, because he's got no defensive tech, right, against physical attacks.
He's got no. The only defensive tech is his Miles reroll. So it's not great. No. So at the end of round 2, I'm still down by 5 points. It's 3 points to 8.
Oh, okay. So at least you scored the same. You're not going to get nilled.
Yeah, no. So I'm not nilled. I managed to hold on to the researcher because Gwen was gone. She couldn't actually do anything to stop me. And I think Wong at the back had got his. So it'd gone like I'd planned it to go in round 3.
Sure.
But I'm thinking, okay, it's still quite a slow scoring game. I think I can, I just need a good round 3 attrition turn and I'll be all right.
Absolutely. And you're keeping priority because he's got so many characters.
Yeah.
You can afford to take 1 or 2 characters out of turn and still keep the priority and keep that momentum going.
Exactly. So round 3 goes. I think at this stage, Wolverine has been dazed that last round as well. There was some like Spectacular Spider-Man nonsense that dazed Wolverine. So Wolverine wakes up, and after what Gwen did to me round 1, I'm terrified of Gwen getting to go. So I go with Wolverine to take out Gwen. Fails.
Oh no.
Wolverine 2 attacks, including his spender, doesn't take out Gwen.
Oh, did you no matter the cost it on his injured side?
No, so just thinking about it again, I think he must have been close to death, but not dead because I didn't no matter the cost, and I think I would have done normally.
Yeah,
but he fails to take out Gwen. That's massive because now all of a sudden, I've had one of my characters have gone, failed to take Gwen out. Gwen all webs up, and she's in range of all my characters to all web up. But Moon Knight is the one that goes. And he goes into Immortal Hulk. 10 damage on Immortal Hulk. He's dazed.
With just his rapid fire?
No, he does do his bow staff, so his reroll everything. So it's a good attack, and I think he rolled his hit. The moon told him that it was an attack time.
Oh, brilliant. So he got extra dice.
So he got an 8 dice into 6 dice, rerolling all, including skulls because of the leadership.
Fantastic.
However, I still think 10 damage through on Immortal Hulk was obscene. And at this stage, Darren and I were just like giggling at the dice rolls because it was so absurd. So, because I've fluffed with Wolverine, I've fluffed with Immortal Hulk, and his Gwen and Black Widow and Moon Knight have just popped off.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, no.
So Immortal Hulk is dazed. Wolverine swiftly follows. Daredevil can't do much to Miles and ultimately gets dazed as well. And Wong is sat at the back. I think Black Cat, walks up to Wong and dazes him too.
Well,
For good measure. So round 3, my round, what I thought was going to be my big round, my big comeback round, ends up all my characters dazed, and I'm lose all the VPs, and I'm down 3 points to 15.
Oh,
So it's a dreadful.
It's a shame he couldn't reach 16 and just put you out of your misery.
I know, it was dreadful. It was a dreadful round. It was as bad as it could have gone.
Yeah. Oh no.
I don't think I dazed any of his characters when I was being out attritioned by Web Warriors. It was pretty spectacular.
But what you're about to tell me, surely, is there's this big comeback, and it's not over till the fat lady sings, and you come back, surely.
So, as we know, MCP is about comebacks and this mechanism which allows you to bounce back after bad turns. So, I finally learned my lesson, and I go with Immortal Hulk, who, though interestingly, Immortal Hulk is probably the only character that I know that doesn't have the bounce back mechanism, because he dazes and loses all his power.
Oh, of course. And then he doesn't even heal back fully.
No. So he goes to 10 health because I had all the power in the world because Moon Knight had just mugged him. But he only has 3 power. But he does something. He dazes Spectacular Spider-Man.
Excellent.
But unfortunately can't. There's Black Widow is stood next to Spectacular Spider-Man, but he doesn't get Black Widow as well because the throws aren't as effective as I needed them to be. So Black Widow actually tanks that, which is a real bummer. I needed Immortal Hulk to do 2. I think I got it down to 1 health left. So, but at least Immortal Hulk is not been entirely useless this game. He's taken out Spectacular Spider-Man, which, is something. You just take
the bar is now quite low.
7 threat for a 3 threat character, and I'm happy. And I'm whooping at this point. Darren's whooping, and we're all going nuts. And actually, Wong similarly is a bit of a hero, similar to my game against Zahir. He tanks some attacks by the menace that is Gwen, and then dazes her.
Oh wow!
Yeah, because of I think I'd done some damage to her from Wolverine, turn before where he failed to take her out, and so Wong just finishes her off. Because the rerolls, a 4 dice attack with a reroll is nothing to be sniffed at.
Absolutely. So she's off the board now, at least.
She's off the board now. Wolverine manages to daze Black Widow and Moon Knight. He does his charge. I do my no matter the cost. He jumps in, takes out Black Widow, charges across the board, takes out Moon Knight. So he's my MVP, if you can really give an MVP in this game.
I mean, he can pop off, can't he, on his injured side when he no matters the cost, because it's 3 additional dice that he's just going to heal right back up.
Yeah,
mostly.
Exactly.
So good.
And then Daredevil gets staggered by Black Cat. Black Cat's been just running around staggering people all game.
Oh no.
So Miles is contesting a point with me, and Black Cat walks onto his side point, which would score him the final VP. So Daredevil gets staggered. He then moves into a position where he can pull Black Cat, spends 2 power to do his attack, and he whiffs.
Oh no, that was your chance.
He doesn't get his hit, which means that Black Cat stays on the point. And so actually, in terms of scoring, I'm not doing very well this turn because I just needed to do as much damage. So the game ends 4 points to me, 16 points to Darren.
He just gets that 1 point purely because you didn't roll a hit on
from
5 dice, is it?
4 dice. 4 dice. And I can't re-roll with Black Cat, so she's a bit of a pain.
Oh, no.
So, it's one of those games where we both go in with very different game plans. He's going for like being a nuisance and pulling me around, and I'm going in to beat him up. And in the end, I get beaten up, which is just tragic when you are playing defenders against Web Warriors.
I mean, it sounds incredibly thematic from the Web Warriors. There's a bunch of points sort of around the edge that they're all dancing around and holding. You're rushing to the middle, hoping to fight them, and they're sort of sending one character in to pull you one way, another character comes in and staggers you, and they're all doing all these little jabs to the point where, your characters just don't know where it's coming from. They're whiffing.
Yeah.
It all sounds incredibly thematic.
It's a real Web Warriors thematic, apart from the fact that 4 dice attacks were just consistently dealing damage.
We've all seen rapid fire attacks sort of like pop off, and
Yeah.
it sounds like, because there's 6 characters, it just feels like that kind of experience.
I think Gwen's first attack, where she did 4 damage to Wolverine, really set the bar for this game. But it was, despite the fact that I was tearing my hair out halfway through. I think I'd had a beer at lunch, so I was a bit more jovial than maybe I would have been if I'd if I'd been sober. But Darren's a great opponent, and we were laughing about it at the end, and saying how ridiculous it was that Gwen was beating me up. Gwen, 100% MVP. She loved it, and no, it was good, but unfortunately, a loss.
You can take this lesson to the bank, and hopefully, maybe it brings you some better luck in round 4. Right, so we're now going to our final game of the day. You've played 3 so far. Sadly, you're on 2 losses, but here's your opportunity to go evens and take some real lessons away from this event, thinking forward towards the Mutant Weekender. So, who are you up against, and what are you playing?
Yeah, so final round, desperate to go 2-2, and I'm up against Norbert, Dr. Norbert.
Oh, the host himself.
The host himself. So, I've actually only played Norbert once before, despite being part of the community for 2 years. And it was only recently. So this was our second game. So I was looking forward to having another and a kind of competitive tournament game with him.
Excellent.
So I lose priority for the 4th time in a row. So I don't win priority at all. It's good. I've got to practice these things. And we draw Infinity Formula. And for the 3rd time in 4 attempts, Skrulls.
So all tournament, you've never gone with your secures. The only time you've gotten one of your secures is when it's also been one of hers.
Yes.
Which was only in round 3.
And actually, despite having pulled all my extracts, I got Skrulls 3 times. one of those things where, probability is a damn lies and statistics.
Brilliant. Well, we'll pick it up at the end, what you think of Skrulls.
Yeah.
But so what threat have you gone with, and what team have you picked?
So I go with 20 threats. Just looking at the table, it's quite wide. And so my list is ASM, Daredevil, Elektra, Luke Cage, and Wolverine. So I've decided to go with Defenders. I thought about ASM-led Web Warriors, and maybe I could have done that. I thought because B map is almost like 2 tunnels, you can have quite a good brawl.
Yep.
And Norbert is playing Hellfire Club. So my second game against Hellfire Club, and it's very Hellfire Club. It's Emma Frost, Lizard, Rhino, Luke Cage, Black Cat, and Miles.
Yeah, steals, damage reduction, throws.
So it's a real Hellfire Club list. And so I'm thinking, can I do enough damage to these characters while also maintaining some level of parity? So round 1, I think ASM does a similar thing to what he did in my game against Will, where he goes for the scroll across from Rhino. Miles, in the first go of the game, Norbert has priority, steals my scroll, which is an interesting, bold play, because if he gets pushed, he's then really in the firing line. So then my ASM takes the right scroll and pops back onto the home Infinity Formula. Luke Cage joins him over there. Daredevil, as he's done all day, pulls Miles and then hops and sits on my left home Infinity Formula.
Nice.
And then Norbert does a nice play where he doesn't pick up his scroll with Black Cat, but he sits Black Cat behind Miles. So Black Cat's not scoring any objectives, but this is post me pulling him with Daredevil. But what this means is that I then go for Miles. I think I take him out with Elektra.
Nice.
Again, Elektra loves taking out Miles. I think the ninjas do some damage and then Elektra finishes him off. But it means that Miles then mission objectives onto Black Cat. So it's a really nice play from Norbert, which does the whole thing where Hellfire Club like getting up on points. So it ultimately is that Wolverine is on the left with Elektra versus his Lizard and Luke Cage. And my ASM and Luke Cage is on the right versus his Emma and Rhino, who has picked up his home scroll. And then my Daredevil and his Miles and Black Cat are central. So round 1, I'm down 3 points to 5 because I've not managed to get Miles' scroll off him. However, because he's 6 wide and I'm 5 wide, I have priority. And I think this is where I should have thought about it a bit more and maybe repositioned Electra such that she could attack Miles. But I end up attacking Miles with Daredevil. Daredevil's still doing 5 dice with 2 rerolls, and then he can do another 5 dice. But he gets 1 off dazing Miles. And my idea behind trying to daze Miles is, yes, he's not holding an objective, but he can do his steals. But what it means that because I've then not failed to take out Miles, Miles then steals from ASM.
And yep, he probably web swing as well with all the power that you've just given him.
Web swings, steals from ASM, runs away, just like what happened against Will. This was a shame, but ASM gets his vengeance. ASM swings in, punches Miles, who's only got 1 health, or maybe 2 by the time the leadership's kicked in, and then runs back to my home objective. So I've managed to get that one back. And then Rhino walks up to ASM and attempts to rob him, but I mission objective onto Luke Cage, so the robbery doesn't go off.
I was wondering when this tech was going to come in. I thought it might have come in against Will, but you were isolated against Will. Sounds like you've been able to set up for it and stop the robbery.
Yeah, so that's that kind of right-hand side where the robbery I've managed to mitigate. On the left-hand side, his Luke Cage is doing Luke Cage things. So Elektra and Wolverine are both going for his lizard, who's holding the objective, and Luke Cage just gets in the way. And I think it's really unfortunate for me because Wolverine in particular has a good chance of, in his activation, taking out Luke Cage because he has his charge online. He can do no matter the cost to try and take Luke Cage out, and he fails. So it just means that Luke Cage's bodyguard is just keeping Lizard alive.
Yeah.
And so at the end of that round, I don't think really there's been a huge amount of damage done either way, apart from Miles being off the table, which is great.
Yep.
I'm still down, and the gap's opened up a bit more. I'm still down 5 points to 9 this time because he's still got 1 more scroll than me. So we're evens on secures, but he's got 1 more scroll than me.
So the gap is creeping away from you.
Yeah. And I was hoping that on my left flank where I have Wolverine and Elektra that I can really do some damage to that flank because I feel that Elektra and Wolverine versus Luke Cage and Lizard is a favourable matchup for me, especially with Wolverine.
It is, but if they can get lucky, can't they, with dice?
Yeah.
And if you're only doing 2 or 3 damage to them, that's getting reduced, and then Lizard goes, heals a bit. The leadership goes, they heal some more.
Yeah.
I think it's still a tough matchup.
It is. It was very much, it felt like it was Hellfire Club doing Hellfire Club things where Luke Cage would survive, then he'd heal a bit, and then he'd bodyguard. And Luke Cage wasn't really scoring him any points. So me attacking Luke Cage, the longer I attacked Luke Cage, the better it was for Norbert.
Yeah.
I needed really to take him out early. So that was the end of round 2. So round 3 kicks off. Elektra finally takes out Luke Cage, but it's just been too long, and Lizard is able to survive on that flank. And I think Wolverine, in fact, gets dazed by Luke before he goes down. One of his big spenders where he throws.
Sweet Christmas.
Yeah, sweet Christmas, man. It was very good. But unfortunately, when Elektra takes Luke Cage out, I'd made a bit of a mistake here. And I think at this point I'd KO'd Luke Cage. So I dazed him the previous round, but it just taken too long. I then KO'd Luke Cage and it taken too long again. But now Elektra basically can't do her assassin step because Luke Cage is off the table. So she can't place next to a model that's not there.
Oh, of course. So potentially the wrong way round, right? Maybe Elektra should have gone first.
And this meant that Elektra wasn't scoring any points. His Lizard was still on his back left. And I had to bring Daredevil across to my back left so that I wasn't losing that secure. So that's what's happening on the left. It's the classic Lizard and Luke Cage. They're just tough. They're just tough to deal with.
Yep.
And actually, I don't think I really got many attacks into Lizard because Luke Cage was being irritating. However, on the right hand side, Luke takes out Black Cat, so he manages to take a VP back, which ASM can then go and pick up. But ASM, in order to go and pick that up, because of the power he didn't have much power because he'd not done a huge amount. Had to just walk and pick it up. So he had a bit of an underwhelming turn, but at least I'm getting those VPs.
Yeah.
I think the position that I'm in is a bit unfortunate. I think Luke is too central. He's not holding my back objective. So Emma manages to walk onto my back objective. Rhino's on his back right objective. And so at the end of the round, the gap is still opening up. and I think it ends 7 points to 14 at the end of round 3, and it's just Hellfire Club doing Hellfire Club things. I think
Yeah.
Emma moving people around, Rhino just running around being a nuisance, and Lizard and Luke Cage just being really tanky. So despite the fact that in round 2 I'd managed to KO Miles, I couldn't make up for the fact that my numbers. So the gap is still opening up.
Hellfire Club is just so reliable. When there's that many points on the table, it benefits them. So they're so good at getting that 5 points,
Yeah,
then 5 points, maybe 4 points, and just keeping the scoreboard ticking up. They want it to end as quickly as possible.
exactly.
They're getting better, and they don't want to daze. They want to keep scoring those points, keep getting healthier, keep getting better. Whereas you're sort of rubber fisted going at them, chasing the game.
Yeah.
While you're also probably getting weaker, right? They're probably at least doing some damage to you.
Yeah.
You haven't got that same sort of bounce back they do.
Yeah, and so and this is kind of how round 4 goes. So round 4, Norbert has a lot of the scrolls, which is ideal because then essentially his characters can just run away.
Yeah.
I can't catch him up just with secures. So he runs Lizard away from Wolverine, leaving his secure.
Snore.
He runs Rhino into my back right corner away from the secures, holding an extract. Oh, and Black Cat steals off ASM and runs away.
Oh.
ASM, in fairness, does his absolute level best, and he swings in. I think he dazes Emma and momentums into Black Cat twice because he has to do 2 attacks into Emma, but Black Cat's 2 good dodge rolls. So she survives. I think I end up taking that secure because she's been dazed and ASM hasn't. But it's just too little too late at this stage. And my attrition is starting to kind of pick up. But Wolverine has 1 shot to take out Lizard and doesn't manage it, funnily enough.
Yeah.
It's Lizard.
Classic.
He's a tough cookie. And the game ends 12 points to 17. So I make up a bit of ground, but it's just my attrition game has just come in a little bit too late.
But see, it looks like he's looked at the board today and he's like, you can't catch me.
Yeah.
So I don't care how many points you score. As long as I get over the line, as long as I get my 2 points, then I'm all good. And it sounds like that turn 1 play with Black Cat being the mission objectives, that sounds really well thought out. It sounds like it is bold because, for instance, Miles might go down quicker than he did.
Mm-hmm.
You might not need to pull him in. You might have just done him in 1, but he didn't, and he got away with it. And the mission objective play was very good, and I think that set up the gap, which meant you were always chasing. And it was a crisis which was so set up for Hellfire Club, a little bit like the last game against Hellfire Club.
Yeah,
you've just walked into their perfect crises combination, and trying to play them in their own game, it's too tough.
It was a masterclass from Norbert in Hellfire Club, I have to say. Like, I think that turn 1 play was brilliant. I mean, okay, he took a risk because if he'd been pushed by Miles, then Black Cat would have struggled to get within range of him just because of the way the terrain was set up for the mission objective.
Yep.
And then also at the top of round 2, if I'd managed to take out Miles, then things might have been different. But because of the way that played out, it meant that Black Cat could run away with a scroll, and Miles was then free to go and steal from someone else.
Yeah.
And then Rhino also had his robbery. So there's so many ways that Norbert can mitigate my getting back the extracts. And so it meant for the first 3 turns, I was just gradually losing that gap. And so I was starting to have to take more drastic measures. And so all his steals were on my right-hand flank. So I was struggling with the extracts there. And my big characters that were meant to do damage, specifically Wolverine, was stuck on the left flank fighting Luke Cage and Lizard, who are notoriously tanky. So it was a game where I really enjoyed it, but it was one of those where I was like, yeah, I've been Hellfire Clubbed.
Yes, absolutely. It sounds like you've had a really tough afternoon. It sounds like you've learned lots of lessons. Shall we park the games there and let's get stuck into some of those lessons?
I don't mind being wrong, as long as I can correct my mistakes.
So, Archie, it wasn't the result you'd hoped for, but, we've come into this event. You wanted it to be a practice. You want to do well at the weekend. You faced, a handful of really, really top opponents there to put that roster through its paces. What are your top 3 takeaways from the day, from the roster?
Yeah, so I was a little bit disappointed. I really like this roster. I think it's quite competitive. So to go 1 and 3 was a bit disappointing, but I think the fact that it was actually a very good prep for the weekend because I lost priority 4 times and it meant that I had to go with my extracts every time. So the big learning point, I think, was that the way that I've built the roster currently, it's weak going wide against rosters that like going wide. So the likes of Hellfire Club and Webs, 3 of my 4 matches were against those two.
And you're setting yourself up for that, right? By having a really wide extracts
Yeah.
and not really having the build to deal with them. Is that fair?
Yes. So I think that there are a few things that I'm looking to change ahead of next week. And this weekend was really helpful with that, because I think the first thing is just that. It's that my crises need to be just low scoring, narrow crises.
Yeah.
So Skrulls, I played 3 times. It was not a good option for me.
I like your ninjas play, being able to pick up that
Yeah.
that near scroll with the ninjas and either pop it back off or get it safe. But it sounds like, yes, there's not very much you can do if the pushes go against you.
Yeah.
And also on those side scrolls. And it sounded like, just listening back to those games, once you went down on scrolls, it was really difficult for you to get them back without doing damage.
Yeah.
And as teams were running away from you or surviving or healing or whatever, that just became harder.
I don't have inbuilt steals, and I think that was a really big problem when I was coming up against teams that had inbuilt steals, because I was relying on my dice to do damage in crises that I wasn't set up to do damage well.
Yeah. And in scrolls, they're quite wide, but it was often one of your extracts, meaning you're on a wide secure. So there was no incentive for your opponent to play close.
Yeah.
And therefore, because the best way your defenders can steal, right, is by dazing characters.
Yeah.
The best way they can daze characters is by getting all those rerolls. But if there aren't any characters near each other, you're not getting any rerolls, you're not getting any dazes, you're not getting those extracts back.
Yeah. So Skrulls isn't good. I also think Hammers is not good.
Right.
Because of the similar problem. I didn't play it, so I'm guessing here. But I think there's going to be similar issues because other teams are going to be better set up.
Because when it arises, it's usually because your opponent's got wider secures, and those hammers on wider secures are just more likely to benefit your opponent than you.
Yeah. I also think, aside from the crises, I was really leaning into the Daredevil leadership, or trying to lean into the Daredevil leadership for this weekend, and actually I need more Webs. I think I thought quite a lot about Daredevil and how I was going to play that leadership, and my core of Immortal Hulk, Wolverine, and Daredevil. I hadn't thought enough about how I was going to pivot into ASM Webs. I just kind of threw some Web Warriors in there just so that it would work.
Did you feel quite restricted then, because your only other Webs are Gwen and Daredevil? Did it mean that you had to take those 3 every time?
Yeah, and it also meant that even when I was playing at 20, I could only go 5 wide with Webs.
Of course.
Which really Webs want to go a bit wider and let someone like Gwen go last.
So your audition pieces, sorry to come back to that, but Elektra and Ancient One, were they currently Hulk? Because obviously you only wanted one of them, but you took both to trial them. Is there a character that's nailed on in your original roster that took maybe a backseat for this event to allow both those in their Web?
So I think Miles will come in. Sure. I think he's just really good. He gives me the flexibility to choose a different leadership, and I just think I played against Miles 3 times this weekend and he was great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think in taking Elektra and Ancient One, Miles got dropped out of the roster for that weekend, but I wanted to audition them, and I actually think in the Battle of the Fours, Elektra was head and shoulders above. The versatility she brings with the ninjas is really huge. I think it's a really nice thing to be able to just go with the ninjas, grab something and run into a corner and force your opponent to send a 2, 3, 4 threat character to go and deal with your grunt that will just come back.
Yeah.
And then also Elektra on her own, I think now is a great piece. She's quite tanky. She can do a decent amount of damage. And so I think she's quite versatile.
I'm so pleased that Elektra won purely for theme reasons as well.
Yeah.
Your main guy is Daredevil. The Daredevil characters, it's got to be Elektra, surely.
Yeah, I agree. And I prefer Elektra as a character to Ancient One. So in my head, I was supporting Elektra, even though I
Nice. So there's a bit of bias there, but it was backed up with a performance on the tabletop.
Yeah. But whether she actually makes it into the final roster for this weekend is still up for debate, because maybe I'll need to bring in more Webs. Maybe she'll have to be sacrificed alongside Ancient One. The other character that I didn't actually play at all this weekend was Iron Fist. And so he's another one that could be on the chopping block. I really like him, though, so that's quite hard for me to do.
Yeah, the extra power generation means there's some quite, potential fun turn 1 plays with him. Also, he's another Heroes for Hire
Yeah,
target
yeah.
who can punch really hard and survive with his blanks. A character that you faced a lot today, who is, when I think of webs and defenders being in the same roster, the first character that comes to my mind is Moon Knight. You played him a lot this weekend. Does he come into your consideration? Is someone who can flex between them both? Does he fit the game plan?
Yeah, definitely. I think Moon Knight is a 3-threat web warrior is always huge. And I actually think, given that I'm thinking of leaning into ASM, he's definitely in the lineup for potentially coming in, because I think he's a good web warrior for ASM because he doesn't care so much about his power generation, so he can use the leadership quite effectively. It's another reason Iron Fist, similarly, not a web warrior, but another 3-threat, he can use the leadership effectively. I think with Moon Knight, I'm not sure he's that good in defenders because I think he, by and large, wants to sit at the back, so he's not making use of the rerolls as much, but definitely as that versatile piece that can fit into both sides. He's under observation.
Okay, interesting. So your first takeaway was you want to go less wide with your extract.
Mm-hmm.
Your second takeaway is Electra won the audition piece, and that you want to lean into some more webs. Is there a third takeaway?
Yeah, so actually, to round it out, the whole roster building is tactics cards.
Nice.
I actually think if we look back at my tactics cards, there's quite a lot there that lean into the Daredevil Defenders attrition game plan. So the one that specifically springs to mind is Smash. And actually, I think given my core of Wolverine, Immortal Hulk, and Daredevil, it's quite easy to select cards from that. You know, you've got Brace, Patch Up, No Matter the Cost, Exceptional Healing, and One Below All. There's 5 tactics cards that you could easily, happily bring, and I think Smash stays at home. So what I'm thinking is, for my tactics card, is maybe replace some of those with pieces that are designed to deal with like wider lists. So, for example, something like Indomitable or Sacrifice is another restricted instead of something like Brace, and then something like Fallback, or even Mart for Death instead of something like Smash, to try and just have some tech to work against those wider lists when I need to lean into it.
Sure. Oh, interesting. I think that's a really good point. I think it's easy to come up with 10 tactics cards that you like, but actually you've got an opportunity to play your defenders, which is very different to when you lean into your webs. So how do you split those tactics cards between them? And if you're not sort of going 5 and 5, there's probably going to be a card or two that you never take, because if you go for 7 defenders cards, it's probably 2 that you leave at home, and it often means then when you play webs, all the other cards just sort of feel a bit irrelevant, unless it's your restricted cards that sort of mix between the two.
Exactly. And also I think that the main tech that I had against something like Hellfire Club is Mission Objective, which is a great card against them because they have steals, but it's quite easy to play around if you're a smart player. And so actually having a bit more tech in there that they have to think about, something like a Fallback Mission Objective combination, is quite nice. And then similarly with Mart for Death, it just prevents characters from just running away and getting all their rerolls and being really tanky. Yep. I need to think about exactly that almost 5-5 split. What cards am I taking when I'm going attrition, and what cards am I taking when I'm going objective focused? And I think to summarize those 3 points in one succinct way is I need to have a game plan with my roster that is built around almost 50% attrition, where I can go up the middle, and then 50% objectives for when I'm forced to go wide. I'm still able to be competitive.
So we're recording this on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
The Mutant Weekender is on Saturday. Obviously, there's some sort of open play, fun activities on the Friday. Mm-hmm. You've got a bit of time now to go away, reflect, and tinker. Yep. You got any practice games lined up?
I think I'm going to go Thursday night for the game night down at Bad Moon. So we'll do some
wow.
practice. So I'm hopefully going to have 4 days of MCP in a row this week. So
huge, and you've seen your group as well,
mm-hmm.
going into the Mutant Weekender. How are you feeling about that?
I think they're all going to be tough matches. We know we've got a lot of people coming from the London scene, which is great, but also people from all over. So Yeah, I'm really excited for the Mutant Weekend, and I'm really pleased we had the opportunity not only to have this event last week, but actually record this podcast now so that I can tell you my thoughts and have some time to reflect on my misgivings.
Definitely. And it's super fun for me that we're doing this because we generally don't know we're recording this before the Mutant Weekender, but just straight after the crisis at the cafe. So we know what's happened, but we don't know what's about to happen.
Yeah.
So the next time the listeners will hear from us, we'll have had the Mutant Weekender, we'll have seen, we'll have been on that journey. But right now it's all to come. It's quite exciting. I'm looking forward to sort of hopefully seeing the redemption story, that redemption arc, straight out the comic books.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So I guess we'll wrap it up there. Thanks for coming on as my co-host once again and interviewing me, Curtis. Where can people find you if they want to see your minis and chat to you?
So if you want to see my minis, you can find me on Instagram. I am Simple Edge Highlights. If you want to chat to me, I'm on the Discord as Curtis. You might also see me pop up on events on Longshanks. I'm Curtis H. So yeah, you can find me there. How about yourself, Archie?
So I'm also on Instagram, where you can see all my MCP and other minis at Smeagol's Corner. And I'm on Discord at Archie_RC. So you can feel free to drop me a message if you want to chat Defenders or any other MCP goodness.
Yeah, and we've been getting some sort of great feedback locally about the podcast, haven't we? But if you've got any sort of comments, advice, or thoughts, feel free to drop either of us a message. That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we'll wrap it up there. So thank you everyone for listening, and as always, keep up the conquest.
The name's Cable. Remember it.